Okay, well, thank you very much. Tough act to follow, Pierre Beatty and his panel, but I think we have an excellent group here to talk about the very challenging issues that face agriculture as it moves to deal with climate change and make its contributions. I'm Clyde Graham. I recently stepped down as Executive Vice President of Fertilizer Canada. I'm now doing some consulting work in this area. And we have panelists. Our first panelist couldn't be here today, but Naoufal, excuse me, just going to check my notes. Yes, Naoufal Mahdar from OCP will be joining us through some pre-recorded video messages. So as the planet continues to peak in carbon emissions, agriculture is poised to play a significant role in the fight against climate change through sustainable practices. And the questions are, how can agriculture play a leading role in the mitigation of carbon emissions globally? What types of opportunities and challenges exist for farmers trying to adapt carbon and regenerative farming practices? And what types of innovations exist or are being developed to facilitate this process? So our speakers today are Naoufal Mahdar, Vice President, Climate Action and Decarbonization at OCP, Kevin Danner, CEO of Carbon Lock Tech, Pierre Lampron, who's the second Vice President and Chair of Policy Committee at the Canadian Federation of Agriculture, and Anass Hafnaoui, Head of FertExplore at the College of Agriculture at Mohamed VI, University Mohamed VI Polytechnic in Morocco. So we're going to proceed and we're going to ask a broad question to all the panelists to respond to. And the first question we're going to ask is them, of course, to introduce their organizations and how they have been working to make agriculture a solution for reducing emissions and storing carbon. And we're going to lead with Mr. Mahdar from OCP.
So OCP is the worldwide leader for phosphate rock, phosphoric acid fertilizers. We owe 30% of the market, export market in the rock, 50% in the phosphoric acid, 20% in the global fertilizer market for pea-based fertilizers. And on top of that, we owe 70% of this world resource of this important nutrient for the planet. That's why we use it in a sustainable way, and we put the sustainability at the heart of our commitment. We have announced our ambition for being neutral on scope 1 and 2 by 2030, and to be neutral on the 3 scopes by 2040. We are the only fertilizer company that has its decarbonization approved, targets approved by SBTi. Already today, 87% of our electricity is coming from clean sources, and we announced an ambition of having 100% of our electricity coming from clean sources, either cogeneration, wind farms, solar, etc. We are self-sufficient from non-conventional water for industrial purposes, either through desalination, wastewater treatment. We support the Moroccan effort as the country is hydrically stressed. So we support the government effort for desalination, wastewater treatment to provide water to the cities and to the farmer communities. To answer your question about the soil health, what we are doing for soil health. As you know, soil health is vital to human life, to ecosystems, biodiversity, and the whole life on the planet. So OCP supports the farmers in their efforts for sustainable agriculture to improve the soil health and to improve the carbon sequestration. We are committed to decarbonize the food systems, which represent 30% of the global greenhouse gas emissions. We always speak about the energy, which represent the 70%, but the world will not achieve net zero goals without this green transition in the food system, which is almost 1/3 of our global emissions. We have launched many campaigns since many years now, AgriBooster, a school lab that in Africa that we touched more than 2 million farmers with that, either through training, through soil mapping, customization of fertilizer for the right need of what the soil that the right need of the soil they have. We have noticed huge improvement on the soil health, the soil organic carbon that has been sequestered. On the yield improvement, we have seen more than 30% more in Ghana, more than 40% in Kenya and Ethiopia. And OCP is promoting sustainable agriculture also through carbon certification programs in Brazil and also in Africa to reward the farmers for adopting sustainable agricultural practices on top of other nature-based solutions such as afforestation, reforestation where we invest either through the OCP Foundation or the APNI, the African Plant Nutrition Institute.
All right. Well, thanks very much for that presentation. The scale of OCP's. Thanks very much for that presentation. The scale of OCP's operations in Morocco, which provides a critical fertilizer for the world, is truly amazing. But so is their commitment to bettering the lot of smallholder farmers throughout Africa and providing the proper crop nutrition for farmers in Canada, the United States, and around the world. So we're going to stay in Morocco, and we're going to be going to Anass Hafnaoui from UM6P, the university there, and maybe you could provide your perspective on the university's role.
So, first of all, thank you very much, Clyde, and thank you all for your presence, your attention, and thank you for this opportunity you are giving us to exchange about this very interesting topic. So important for each of us and also for next generation, our children. So my name is Anass Hafnaoui. I am chemical engineer. After 10 years career in Belgium, I joined OCP in 2015. And 2 months ago, I joined UM6P. To occupy the position of head of FertExplore. So, very briefly, who is FertExplore and who is UM6P? FertExplore is a new entity under the leadership of the UM6P ecosystem in charge of developing new fertilizer formulations, new fertilizer generation, fertilizers with high agronomic efficiency and less greenhouse gas emission. In other words, fertilizers for sustainable agriculture. UM6P is a university that was created by OCP Foundation to serve different topics and different activities related to agriculture. So I say different topics related to fertilizer and not related to agriculture and not agriculture alone, because we believe at UM6P that sustainable agriculture is not a matter for agronomists alone. Sustainable agriculture is a whole package of knowledge that we need to achieve our goals and to make agriculture sustainable. So indeed, we need agronomic knowledge, but also biological, for example, because we have to know the need of crops and microbiome in the soil to be able to feed them with the right nutrient sources. We need physical knowledge to understand the structure of soils to feed them with precision. And we need the chemical knowledge. Very interesting and very important, because we need this knowledge to be able to produce fertilizers by using the right source nutrients with the right balances between these nutrients to be efficient, and taking into account the specificities of every kind of soils over the world. All these knowledges are interesting to offer to agriculture and to farmers integrated solutions that will be in line with what we call internally the 4Rs approach, which is a very important notion for us. 4Rs, or les 4R, that means right source at the right time, in the right rates, and in the right place. Clyde, please let me go back to the second part of the question about...
Very briefly, yes.
Yes, very briefly, about the actions taken by UM6P to target sustainable agriculture. It's simple. At UM6P, we carry out all our projects respecting 3 imperatives. The first one is that every innovative solution has to be sustainable. It's part of what we call internally the must-win battles. It has to be achieved. It has to be sustainable. I can't sequestrate carbon and generate other molecules or other gas with negative impacts.
Okay. Thanks very much,
Thank you.
Anass. Obviously, agribusiness can provide a lot of solutions to farmers, but ultimately the challenge really is at the farm gate. Pierre, maybe you could talk about how the Canadian Federation of Agriculture has been working to address these issues.
Yeah, hello everyone. I'm Pierre Lampron. I'm organic dairy farmers here in Quebec, and I'm the 7th generation on the farm. I'm farming with my 3 brothers plus my son, so we're all very involved and prepare for the future. And then again, I'm second vice of the Fédération canadienne d'agriculture. La FCA représente 190 000 familles agricoles coast to coast, d'une côte à l'autre. Puis on représente les provinces et les commodités. Agriculture worldwide is under many pressure, as you know, producing enough food, good quality, good proteins, and we need to feed the world. With the expectation of the 9.6 billion people in 2050. So, and with more and more disruption in the global food supply chain, rising input costs, les coûts d'intrants qui montent tout le temps, and about the weather, the different risk and more drought or hurricane, so we are directly affected. But I'm not here to talk about the negative stuff. I want to talk about the positive stuff. The good picture of agriculture. I think agriculture, we are part of the solution for the climate change. And we are involved on that, but for the future, we have a lot of potential for agriculture to resolve problems. Talk a bit about the CFA, what we doing quickly. We are involved in the process of the sustainable agriculture strategy. Canadian Wetland Roundtables, PC Risk Strategy, Living Lab programs. We are present at the different COPs, and at the internationally, we are part of the World Farmer Organization. We participate on the climate change and biodiversity working group, so we are try to influence there. CFA, we have a lot of members too, so some initiative come from our members. So Dairy Farmers of Canada, they are engaged on net zero strategy. We have a beef roundtable, sustainable beef, ornamental agriculture sector, natural-based solution which directly contribute to the create wildlife habitat. And at the 3R nutrition stewardship, just you talked about before, is very important to the right source, right in the right time, at the right place, we can save a lot of stuff. You need to understand in agriculture, when you save resources, we save money. So if you have loss, si on perd moins, on a moins de pertes, ça fait plus d'argent qui reste dans la poche des producteurs, fait des choses qui est très intéressant pour nous. Puis, il y a aussi beaucoup d'initiatives qui sont prises par les provinces et nos spécialités à travers le Canada. Fait qu'il y a beaucoup de choses qui sont déjà en œuvre pour le bien de la planète.
All right. Well, thanks very much, Pierre. And so we've gone from international to national to Canadian perspectives, farmers. Now I'd like to move to a more micro level with Kevin Danner of Carbon Lock. Kevin is one of the many entrepreneurs that working on implementing real and practical solutions that can be used by farmers. Kevin, what's your word on this?
Very good. Thank you, Clyde, and thank you, everyone. Carbon Lock Tech, a clean tech startup, a climate tech startup based in Manitoba. We're developing a pyrolytic reactor technology that converts agricultural waste, agri-food waste, food waste into a stable form of biocarbon that can then be sequestered safely for the long term in agricultural soils. We're also researching carbon pathways. And so start with the atmosphere. There's too much carbon in the atmosphere. We know this. This is what's driving climate change. But plants pull down that carbon up to 1/3 of emissions every year. That carbon gets locked in the plants, in the leaves and the branches and the fruits and the seeds, ends up in our economy. But it does leave our economy at some point, and it leaves in the form of waste. That is carbon. That is captured carbon. It is a gift. It's a gift that we squander when we let that carbon go to the landfill, where it then can decompose and go back up as methane. So this carbon cycle is something that we're trying to intercept, we're trying to divert. We take the organic waste, the carbon, and we carbonize it into a form of biocarbon, which is then stable, but also when added into soils and in other carbon sinks, can have some beneficial properties. So we're scaling those technologies, and we believe that with this type of technology and this type of carbon pathway, we can have sustainable agriculture in this country and around the world.
Oh, thanks very much, Kevin. I had the privilege of attending an agri-tech conference in Toronto, and the range of different solutions that people are working on for real implementation on real farms is amazing, and they're taking on considerable risk in these things as well. So they're really to be applauded. So we're just going to shift back to obviously, in the last few years, with inflation, food shortages in many parts of the world, the imperative of providing affordable, safe food for so many people in the world is incredibly important. But we're facing that challenge at the same time we're trying to deal with the decarbonization issue. So the next question we'd like to delve into is, how can agriculture balance the urgent need to lower agriculture's carbon footprint against the challenge of increasing food production to feed nearly 10 billion people by 2050? So we'll go back to Morocco and Naoufal.
So soil health and the right nutrition is the bridge between food security and climate action. When you nourish very well, very rightly the soil, you do the balance between the soil health, food security, and in the same time, carbon sequestration and climate action by reducing emissions. Today, what is the problem? The problem is that agriculture is a net emitter rather than being a net sequester of greenhouse gases. Today, agriculture generates 9.3 billion tons of CO2. And that's roughly 17% of the global world emissions. That's huge. Among of which 4 billion are related to the land use and land use change, including deforestation, etc. the situation would have been much worse if we don't use fertilizers, because fertilizers bring half of the world crop production. So we would have generated even more deforestation without fertilizers. The question now is how to unlock this potential of the soil to be a net sequester rather than a net emitter, to be a solution to the climate change rather a contributor to the climate change. All scientists agree, and many researchers show that soil carbon sequestration has a potential of 15 billion tons of CO2 of sequestration per year. And so how to unlock this potential and achieve this success? We see it through, in OCP through three main levels. First, regulations and standards that allow recognizing and incentivizing the sustainable practices of the farmer. Second one is the investment, because the farmer on his own does not have the resources to do the sustainable agriculture and engage all the investment that it will require for no tillage, for cover cropping, etc. So we need support for this green transition. And the third pillar for success is the partnerships across the whole food value chain, and from inputs to the downstream, by empowering and through that by empowering the farmer for adopting sustainable agricultural practices.
Okay. Well, thanks to Naoufal for that video intervention. Anass, maybe you could briefly talk about the role that institutions such as yours can play in providing the scientific background and knowledge to make all this work.
So about this question, we have chosen at UM6P to not have to choose between sustainability and feeding the population. We believe that we can do both at the same time. If I have to summarize our mindset about that, I will say we need to succeed on this challenge. We need efficient agriculture and intensive innovation. It's why on UM6P, FertExplore, we have launched a lot of projects with a large budget to develop new fertilizers generation, new solutions, new practices to maximize the agronomic production with the agronomic space we have at your disposal. Sincèrement, je suis très confiant que nous pouvons réussir ce challenge. Je suis tellement confiant qu'on peut trouver les solutions techniques et pour produire plus et nourrir la population tout en limitant les émissions et tout en pouvant traiter ce que nous allons émettre. Nous croyons en un monde presque parfait, mais un monde où il n'y a pas d'émissions, ce n'est pas possible tout de suite. Donc, nous sommes sur le préventif et le curatif. Nous développons des solutions qui nous permettent de produire plus en émettant moins de gaz à effet de serre, mais aussi des technologies qui nous permettent de traiter le peu de gaz que nous allons émettre.
All right. Thank you. Pierre, so how do Canadian farmers view that balance between reducing emissions, controlling emissions, and the need to really generate the yields that are going to feed people all over the world?
We are very positive too. I think we can do that. We need research. We need to work all together, and I think we can find solution for the future. It will not be easy, but it's possible because it's a lot of potential. You know, farmers we are stewards of the land, so farmers are innovator, resilience, and adapt well. And so we need to change bits, maybe the way we address the stuff, because we need, you know, agriculture, it's not all everything everywhere the same thing. It's just about de till. Je vous parle de réduire le labour. Ça a été beaucoup fait dans l'Ouest canadien. Ça a beaucoup capté beaucoup de carbone. Mais dans l'Est, c'est pas le même sol, c'est plus humide, c'est pas la même chose. Fait qu'il faut faire attention. Il faut vraiment être spécifique pour avoir des programmes, des méthodes, des bonnes pratiques qui vont être différentes d'une place à l'autre. Souvent, many times they talk about, farmers, they need to do this or do that. I think farmers, we need to be at the beginning of the process to talking about how we can address that and work with all the company, all the governments. It's, now we did a few things, and precision agriculture technology is very important. Cover crops, it's important. Crop rotation, it's another way. Soil testing, I think it's another very important. We need to know more, not just did what, because my father and grandfather they did something, we still did the same. It's not the way we make agriculture now. We need to test the soil analysis and be repeated with the 4R. So source, right time, and the right place. It's the good right. It would be good. So. And we cannot do all this alone. I think we need to work with private and government and science to address the dust.
Right. Well, thank you, Pierre. And I think, as you say, one of the incredible stories in Canada is the move to minimum zero tillage in Western Canada that has sequestered tremendous quantities of soil organic matter and has been a huge part of not only improving soil health, but also storing a heck of a lot of carbon in the prairies and in parts of Ontario as well. But when it comes to storing carbon, Kevin, you've got something really unique going on. And so maybe you could talk about that balance as well.
Certainly. Thank you. I agree with Pierre and Anass. We need to do both. We have to address the climate crisis, and we have to feed the world. 9 billion people is a lot of people. But there's a priority here, I think, that's important. Could we feed 9 billion people in the world today? Yes, we could. I think we can with technology and innovation. Can we feed 9 billion people in the world when we're in the middle of a climate crisis? I don't know if that's going to be possible. So we do have to address the climate crisis. And fortunately for agriculture, I think the solution is there. If we are able to take the organic material that is produced by producers and growers, and think about this, agriculture is a carbon dioxide removal technology, and I don't think that producers and growers get the credit figuratively or even financially for pulling down that carbon, but that carbon can be then reintegrated into soils. And if we can do that and we can improve the quality of the soil, the health of the soil, we can grow additional crops, higher yields, we can address the climate crisis, we can have our cake and eat it too.
All right. Well, hopefully we'll get some bread and vegetables and other things as well as cake. So the final question we want to address today, and we'll be going back to Morocco for OCP's perspective, is what do other players in the system, businesses, universities, government, investors, all kinds of people that have an influence over and an impact on the agricultural sector, what role do they need to play to support, which is really a global effort?
So you will have noticed since the beginning that I emphasize a lot on the farmer. So he is the masterpiece. It is essential to empower the farmer to adopt these sustainable practices and be a motor for fighting climate change by providing him a strong business model. We cannot let him carry the burden, financial burden, technical burden for this transition. So we need to incentivize him by adapting the business model and making it a success for adopting such practices, such as no-till, cover crop, etc., and make the farmer play the central role for agriculture as a solution and the net sequester of carbon sequestration. In In that aspect, as you said, to answer your question, each stakeholders has a role to play. Universities, they have a big role in innovation and bringing the cost down on all the technologies that are needed for sustainable agriculture, such as MRV, such as machinery, etc. Government and organizations, they have also a big role to play on policies and frameworks which will allow finance to flow, because finance will need policies, will need standards to protect the investment. And the third thing, we need investors for bringing and this initial finance that we will need and solidifying the business model through de-risking, through studies, through bringing the markets, securing the offtake.
Well, thanks very much to Naoufal for his video interventions. Anass, perhaps you can address that issue. And I know that UM6P has an awful lot of partnership work going on.
Exactly. Thank you, Clyde. We have a big challenge, but not enough time to complete them alone. As we say, alone we go faster, but together we go further. So we need partnership and partnership and partnership. We have to join our efforts to achieve our common goals in terms of sustainability. Nous avons besoin de beaucoup de partenariats. Et d'ailleurs, c'est pour ça que j'invite tout le monde à venir nous rendre visite sur notre campus à Ben Guerir, le campus de l'Université Mohamed VI, parce que notre scope d'action est tellement large que nous avons besoin de toutes les capabilities et tous les savoirs pour travailler ensemble pour un objectif commun. Tous nos projets sont menés en partenariat avec des partenaires partout dans le monde, des universités, des gouvernements, des entreprises, des centres de recherche. Et nous veillons à mixer les équipes. Nous travaillons sur des projets avec un focus africain. L'Afrique, c'est parce que le gap d'amélioration est encore grand, mais tout en travaillant avec des partenaires européens et d'Amérique du Nord, parce que nous avons aussi besoin de ce transfert de savoir et de bonnes pratiques, un transfert nord-sud. Nous vivons dans le même monde. Les efforts doivent être faits de part et d'autre. Sinon, ce ne sera pas efficace. Nous avons beaucoup de partenariats avec différents partenaires dans le monde, notamment des partenaires européens, africains, américains, comme l'IFDC, l'International Fertilizer Development Center, mais aussi beaucoup de partenariats ici au Canada, grâce au travail que fait mon collègue Karim Mansouri. Nous avons plusieurs partenariats comme avec différentes universités comme McGill, Guelph, Laval, Manitoba. Et nous en demandons encore plus. On a été même un peu plus loin et on a fêté il y a 2-3 semaines maintenant la création de UM6P Canada. Et après avoir créé UM6P France et UM6P dans des pays africains, et ce n'est pas encore fini parce qu'il y aura d'autres UM6P dans d'autres géographies dans le monde. Le but est de rassembler les efforts pour atteindre nos objectifs communs.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Anass. So, Pierre.
Yes, on our side, it's a lot of solutions. It's we need all of society and all the government approach to tackle this. Farmer, we are some project. It costs a lot of money. I don't talk about all the manure regeneration, biogester. It's good for the environmental, but it costs a lot of money. So we need a big approach. The producer, we are the business owner. Les producteurs, c'est des gens de business, c'est des gens. Mais pour faire de la business, il y a 3 choses qu'il faut avoir. Il faut être durable, il faut être impliqué dans la société, puis il faut aussi être rentable. We don't want farmers working. We don't say, "Hey, farmers, it's a good project. You can be involved, but you will be in the red on your sheep, so it's not good." Ça a besoin d'être rentable pour les agriculteurs. Et c'est un moyen, comme je disais tantôt, il y a de la rentabilité à faire dans ça. Moins qu'on pollue, plus qu'on séquestre, mieux que les sols sont en santé et plus que l'économie va être là. Mais il faut se donner un coup de tous ensemble. Ça prend aussi, we don't looking for the button up, we need for the button up. It's very important. Farmers need to be included. Diversity across Canada, it's not all the same. They need different solutions. So we don't like program to penalize producers. I think producer needs to be involved and be positive for them. And I think we need program to compensation about the lands we can lose to keep for the biodiversity, but producer lost something, so we need to compensate for that. And find solution. They don't add the paperwork. I think we can do something with not adding paperwork for farmers. So, and I think at the end we need to participate on the carbon credit. The good farmer needs to be part of this good project. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Okay, well, thanks. And Kevin, maybe you want to provide your perspective. I'm particularly, we did mention investors. I'd be particularly interested from an entrepreneurial point of view with the importance of investment.
Certainly. Thank you, Clyde. Yeah, these are big, complex, tricky problems, and they require consolidated responses and partnerships. At our company, we've been fortunate to work with the federal and provincial governments. We've been the recipient of a number of really good grants. Love to see those as a startup. We've also worked with universities, University of Manitoba, University of Brandon, Technical College, Centennial College in Toronto, and Red River College in Winnipeg as well. Testing the carbon, we've taken it, we've made it, we've crushed it, we've put it in concrete, we've put it in ag, we've used it to replace peat moss, we've embedded it in compost. We're using it as a landfill, leachate filtration, some really good partnerships with academia. And also with the investor, we have received some really good investment through some agricultural investors. That money tends to ebb and flow, and I find sometimes that it's difficult to build a startup waiting for funding like that. And I'm also finding that there is a bit of a deficiency on the policy side. Again, these are tricky problems, and there needs to be integration at all levels of government. There needs to be some consistency of the price of carbon. I'm sure as a producer, that's challenging. Sometimes you don't know what the price is, and the prices go up and down. It must be very difficult to plan. If we are going to plan our way, if we're going to be strategic about getting ourselves through the climate issue to the other side, that we need to have that integration, and that's one thing that has been missing. But if I could highlight one thing that I think is really positive, it is the carbon markets. I think there's a tremendous potential here, and there's a tremendous potential here for agriculture to play a role that it perhaps hasn't played to date so far. You've probably all seen this graph where there's a big bubble. That's our emissions on the top of the graph, and then there's a lower part, and that's the removals. And then there's this point, a net zero point, where the emissions are balanced by the removals. Well, that point, net zero, does not exist without these removals. You'll never get to net zero without the removals. And this whole emitting economy is an economy. It is our economy. We're all part of that. Everything emits. But this sector, this removal sector, it doesn't exist yet. It hasn't been built yet. There's a handful of startups like ours trying to build biochar type technologies, ocean type technologies, direct air capture. This has to be built. And I think that there is an opportunity for agriculture to be able to be the first net zero sector in the economy by leveraging what it does with the agricultural waste that it has and being able to convert that into biocarbon and socking that away in soils. Could put 5 gigatons of carbon a year in soils around the world. That's some pretty heavy lifting towards the 10 gigatons that they say we'll need by 2050. So many moving parts. We're all going in the same direction. Let's go there together.
Maybe I forget something. Thank you.
Yes, please.
Food chain is very important because we don't talk about the waste, but waste is part of the problems too. So if you have a good food chains, you can produce what the consumers need. It's a place don't cost money, but it will be part of the solution too.
Yeah. And Anass, do you have
I would like
final?
to
We're ending on a
Thank you.
positive note here, so
Thank you,
if you have a positive
Thank you.
perspective on this,
No,
that'd
I
be
like the idea about the carbon markets. I think that a farmer who implement good practices has to be able to profit financially, to be rewarded on his efforts. That's important. I would like to add something, ça me tient à cœur. J'ai dit tout à l'heure que les solutions techniques, je suis confiant qu'on allait les trouver pour nourrir le monde et pour traiter nos déchets. Moi, il y a une chose qui me tient à cœur et c'est un avis personnel. J'ai peur avec la croissance démographique, j'ai peur d'une urbanisation du monde rural. Qu'on ait une cannibalisation des terrains agricoles pour construire des bâtiments. Parce que avec toutes les meilleures solutions du monde et tous les efforts, si nous n'avons pas assez de sol pour cultiver, ça va être le vrai problème. De l'eau, on trouvera toujours, des fertilisations, on trouvera toujours, des fertilisants et de l'énergie, on trouvera encore. Mais là, le sol, c'est le capital agronomique et nous devons le préserver.
well, very, very well said. I think we have a couple of minutes left, and we may give that back to the conference if we could get a credit against future panel discussions, perhaps in future years. I guess I would like to say that I've been engaged in work for more than 20 years about trying to reduce emissions. A lot of what I've done has been related to a pesky molecule called nitrous oxide, N2O. It is the emissions from farmers' fields are very small by weight, but the impact of nitrous oxide is tremendous, and it's 300 times more impactful on climate change than carbon dioxide. But it's a very difficult problem to deal with because agriculture occurs outside. You have so many variables, including the weather, the actual climate conditions, and so many other factors that are difficult to deal with. And so I think you've seen from the panel today the complexity of the issues, but also the tremendous commitment of just a small part of the entire global effort. And that is really what it takes. It is a challenge, a complex challenge that requires complex solutions. So I would just urge everyone who hears people say that there's a simple one-size-fits-all solution to these issues. I would take some time to think about that before you get on board with that. But again, thank you very much for everyone, for all of your very thoughtful perspectives, and also that sense of we're going to get this done. And I think that's true because I think we will achieve a lot for farmers, for global food production, for the economy to continue to grow into the future and still protect the environment and the climate. So thanks very much to everybody, and to Naoufal, who wished he could be here as well. So thanks very much, and enjoy the rest of the sessions.